Hi, lovies. This is Christina with Karma's Eye Psychic LLC here on Universal Spirit Podcast. Today's episode is a bonus episode in regards to fear in the spiritual social media community. I want to get this out here because our last episode was about spiritual psychosis and how a lot of fear mongering can lead to people being very fearful of just regular events, whether you're spiritual or even religious. The hype of fear mongering on social media can, in fact, exacerbate our actions on a day-to-day basis. But besides, what happened recently in the eclipse, there's a lot of fear mongering that happens on social media, and in particular, the spiritual community. Now, does it happen in every other community? Yes, but it happens mostly in the spiritual community that I know of. Mostly because that's the community that I'm in, and it goes as far as tarot readers when they say, "Hey, stop scrolling. If you don't listen to this message, it's not going to come true," or if you don't tap the screen or hit like or follow or share, that you're not going to receive this blessing. As small as it is, it does kind of fear monger you into, you know, uh, wanting to receive some good news, because obviously we all want to receive good news, but it's almost putting us in a very vulnerable state where it's like the person who has posted it doesn't actually know who you are. It is relying on an algorithm to find people for likes, and clickbait pretty much. But the use of fear has been used in every industry in order to get followers or to make profits or to become relevant, right? Because fear can feed off of everyone's negative energies, especially those who moan, complain, who have hate in their heart. Fear is just another wave of energy that can be used to capitalize on gaining followers or even just simple engagements. Now, tarot readers do this in a way where they will pull a card in the tarot. It could be the regular tarot, or it could be, a specified oracle deck, and intentionally give you, I wouldn't say a bad reading, but a negative outlook on the cards that they have, when most of the time cards will have the double meanings, or the meaning of negativity is not as bad, but they exaggerate it to make it feel like it's super terrible. The spiritual social media community also uses a lot of key phrases or key situations to make you afraid of the people around you, because the spiritual community has this chosen one type of algorithm where you're the chosen one, you're the this, you're the that, you're the main character. And yes, all these things are true, but they're saying that all these bad things are going to be happening because you are the chosen one, so to speak. Like, I've seen the use of speculating that there is somebody who had taken a life insurance policy out in your name because you're the chosen one, and they have all these motives against you. Okay, and it kind of like allows people to get a bigger head about themselves than necessary. Yeah, you can be the black sheep of the family, but I doubt that people are taking out life insurance policies out on you, and that kind of like proves or kind of validates the fact that it's you're the chosen one, because they're doing all this. Also, if they speak to you a certain way, they're just a hater. People could be speaking to you a certain way simply because they are themselves are just nasty, or they are just ignorant, and they speak to everyone that way. It's not particularly because it's you. In some cases, yes, it is because it's you, but this happens to a lot of people, and they try to make it seem like it's just you because of your gifts and because of your light. Now, let's be honest. We all have gifts and we all have light, but that is not always the reason why people disrespect us. There are other other reasons why people hate on us, or other reasons why even a quote unquote chosen one can also feel feelings of jealousy, and feelings of hate as well. It kind of puts the chosen one in this chair, like, you're perfect and everyone else is against you, and they make it seem like it's everyone against them. Okay, it'd be like, oh, it's your family, it's your friends, it's definitely your mom, and it's definitely this person. They have no idea. They are just feeding an algorithm of random people, and I mean random billions of people. But the life insurance fear mongering is the one I've heard the most on social media. I've heard that, people have planned to jump you. They plan to get you into a room and beat you up, and you were protected by not going into this place. 9 times out of 10, most adults are not planning to get together with other adults just to beat up one adult. Now, that particular scenario is playing to your childhood trauma of the times when you were on the playground, or you were at school or at lunch, and you had a bunch of teenagers and middle schoolers do that to you, and it's just reinventing, the trauma for you. It's bringing it back up to you. It's like, oh my God, they are probably against me because I remember how that feels. Nobody in their adult mind is doing that. Okay, so they're just playing on trauma that you've already gone through to just not trust anyone. And they make it seem like being a chosen one is, something to, aspire to, but at the same time, they put all this fear saying that no one's going to like you. You're never going to be able to keep a job. You're never going to be able to do this and do that. It's almost as if they make it sound like being a chosen one is just not what you would generally choose for yourself. Right? It's almost as if you now have to second guess, am I a chosen one? Am I an indigo child? Am I a starseed? Okay, now that you're questioning yourself, now you're hooked on listening to more messages in the spiritual community on social media. Okay, now you don't trust yourself, so now you got to look to everyone else. And yes, it's a hook. It's a hook that they use. Now I'm going to get into the, nitty gritty of what has been really spiraling in the spiritual community on social media. When you move over to witches and practitioners and people who do magic and witchcraft, the biggest fear mongering that we see here is that, if you don't pay for this, if you don't do this, this curse is going to be upon you. And if you don't get my services, then you're doomed forever. Or you'll get people in your DM saying, hey, I'm going to do this ritual for you, and if you don't pay me, I'm going to curse you. Right? Like, nobody wants to get that DM saying that, hey, I went ahead and did some work for you, and if you don't pay me the $300 that it costs to do this, then I'm going to put a curse on you. Now, let me tell you where that is dangerous. Okay? Once you tell a person that you have put a curse on them, or a hex on them, or some blockages in their life, the average person, I'm not talking about someone who is mentally well-rounded and very well, put together. The average person will then start to have a seed of fear planted into their mind. Now, this goes back to our episode a while back when I was talking about the magic of psychology, because most of spirituality is how much you believe is gonna manifest, how much you believe is possible, right? And once these spiritualists, mostly baby witches, or a bunch of jerks and assholes who got their hands on spirituality, or at least the aesthetic of spirituality, say things like, I'm gonna curse you and this is never gonna happen for you, and they can be intimidating enough, and they can be aggressive enough, and they can be loud enough, okay, it can plant a seed of fear in the average person's mind, right? Especially if they are not used to being in that, in that community. And the spiritual community can already get a bad rap because sometimes spiritual people curse each other, or they brag about cursing each other, and it's like having a religious war without the religious part. It's weird, right? So now the seed is planted in your mind that I'm gonna curse you, and this bad is gonna happen, and you're gonna wish you're never born and stuff like that. Now you're gonna be looking over your shoulder every day, Every day, one small bad thing happens to you. You trip, okay? Something falls on you, like some leaves fall on you, and you think it's bad. You think you're cursed now. You start to believe that this person did something. You then start to believe that, oh no, like now things are bad or happening when the same things have always been happening. You've always been tripping in that spot. Leaves have always been falling, right? Just like the eclipse has always been there, type thing, right? Once it gets into your head, it makes you a nervous wreck. This is where psychology comes in. This is where you start to believe that now I gotta now shake this off of me because now you think you have something. And once you believe you have something, you have now created it yourself. Now you've created your own curse. And their biggest psychological approach, right, would be like to scam you on social media, or try to be like scam your clients, and worst of all, troll you, right? They go around pretending to be you, continuously sending comments on your pages or on your videos or on your stories, and trying to get everybody in your comment section against you and say things like, oh yeah, I went to her and it was terrible, this and that. Just using all of the negative social pressures against you. They'll threaten to hex you. They'll threaten to hex your children. They'll get your social media information. They'll start posing as people that you know to be friends with you. They'll threaten to, expose you as a fake. Like they become so bothersome, right? I like to call them like spiritual roaches, okay? They'll find your clients and then try to friend them. In the past, I've actually had, a client, or I would say ex-friend of mine, go around and tell everyone, specifically because I saved the messages, that, oh yeah, she uses her food stamps to make these oils, so they're not real and they're fake, and she has no friends, and she's not even, real psychic, because this was a lie, and blah, 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 because that person in particular was upset with the fact that she didn't go through the proper avenues to work with me. And everything is documented, right? I've put everything through legal, so I'm allowed to talk about this. I just can't say her name. However, she does pop up on my business page fairly often, and my personal page, and knowing very well she has no business doing it. But they will continue to show up in your life to make you feel as though they're not gone, right? Just making you feel like you're just always on edge. Now back to the idea of you creating your own curse. Now that you have, feel stalked, and you feel, always being like you're watched, and you don't feel safe, right? It's natural. You don't feel safe. You feel like everything you're doing is going to be pinged and pinned. You start to become paranoid on your own. Okay, you start to build up these negative forces that will then project out into your reality, that will manifest themselves as you sabotaging yourself. It will also attract others to sabotage you and talk to you a certain way or treat you a certain way. Then you'll start to see people, is she getting smart with me? And then once you start thinking that, you start thinking that everybody's doing it. And then you start becoming very self-conscious. And it is a domino effect once you believe someone has cursed you, or has, is really, following you like that, or really just trying to make your life a living hell, right? It starts in the mind. Then once they got you there, it is not uncommon for things in your life to start falling apart very negatively. I have myself been, I would say a victim, but I have been guilty of doing this after I had my little encounter. So I'm probably gonna make a separate podcast episode about this woman named Kate that I ran into, and that is a whopper of a story. So I will put that in a separate episode, but it's very similar to what I'm talking about. But the short end of it is that this was a woman that I met on social media through some mutual friends groups and all that, and we became friends like in real life, but not like like super super close. So we were like fast friends, right? Maybe I'll use this episode to talk about it. And she was giving me her tips. I was giving her my tips. This was the time when I still had my trailer, and I invited her to my trailer. And it seemed as though she would, tell me that I needed certain things or herbs or materials, and I had them. And she seemed to look surprised that I had them, right? I'm just like, how are you surprised? I mean, we're both in the same business, aren't we? Like, we're supposed to have certain, basic things. She would text me on and off about some personal things, and we would email each other on Facebook. Everything I have with her is documented, every single thing. So nothing I'm saying is a lie. Everything I'm saying is 100% true. Okay, then I myself had some personal issues that I decided to just not be around anyone, and I had a hard time sharing them. And she took offense to when I wasn't talking to her as much. And I was like, yeah, I'm just going through stuff. And she was a little too much for me emotionally. She was like, yeah, but you got to get yourself back up. Now, she wasn't wrong. She wasn't wrong. But at the time, I wasn't ready to hear that. And I was just like, listen, I know what you're saying is right, but guess what? I can't, right now. I got to really just let them feel and move past it or whatever. So after a while, I started realizing that I didn't like talking to her because she was very domineering, and very, trying to take me under her wing, so to speak. She thought that since she was older than me, that she knew more than I did, and she was more successful than me, which is possibly true, right? And I just like being independent because, I'm independent without her. I just met her. I'm not involved. I'm not, committed. But she took offense to me not wanting to speak with her, and then I noticed and I started uncovering some lies she was telling about some mutuals that she claimed to have known, and I went to them and they were like, I have no idea who that is. I was like, okay, that's weird. Then I went to a few more people, and they said they didn't know her either. I showed them her picture, and they're like, no, I have no idea who that is. So I started realizing that she was kind of coattailing my success by trying to be affiliated with me. So then I just kind of like completely backed away. I was like, oh no, this looks like an imposter type thing, try to get me sucked into something, right? So I ended up just stopped talking to her, didn't block her or anything like that. But she ended up texting me from a completely different number. And I'm just like, who is this? She's like, it's Kate, it's me. I was like, cool. She's like, did you curse me or something like that? And I was like, no, I'm not into that. I just stopped talking to you. I don't got to do all that. Then she starts to go off on a rampage talking about, guess what? Well, I cursed you and I put this on you and your kids and this and that and blah, blah, blah. And I'm going to make sure you wish you were never born. And I hope you lose your teeth, because at the time I had the gap in my teeth. And I was like, oh, all right. And for a very long time, she just texted me. She just cyberbullied me. She went up against my clients, my business, tried to duplicate things. To this day, I do believe she still does some stuff, right? But I've gotten text messages in the middle of the night talking about, I'm going to haunt your dreams, blah, blah, blah. I even told her to leave me alone, and her answer was no. So I had to end up taking all of that to the police department, because I was like, when someone tells you to leave them alone and you say no, that's very intentional, right? Now this person is aiming to harm you, right? Now, she is an example of one of the worst people I've ever encountered in the spiritual community. She knew very little about spirituality, and then had the nerve to try to tell me that she had something to teach me. And you could tell she just jumped from Christianity right to paganism. And my darlings, I did not do that. I've been on this journey for a very long time. So there's no jumping here. You're not going to listen to me mention Jesus or God in the same way that everybody else does. Okay? So all this to say that I personally have had experiences with people in the spiritual community who are trying to fear monger you in every way, shape, or form. She would say things like, oh, I got this herb and I got this person and I went to a high priestess and I did that. And no offense, don't ever tell someone you're going to curse someone and then you're not the one that actually did the cursing. That's weird. Just saying. Okay? And if you've ever encountered that, understand that that person is a complete whack job. Okay? But people who have mental illness can get in touch with, they can get their hands on magic and spiritual means. Okay? And I do have that on my website as well. It's called Straight Jacket. Okay? When people who have mental illnesses get their hands on spiritual means and how to combat that. Okay? Lastly, don't get so caught up on titles like priest or high priestesses or wizard or high witch and all those other titles that they want to make it sound like that you are beneath them, right? I know people do get initiated into, Afro spiritual cultures, and people do gatekeep a lot of things that say you are not allowed in this culture and stuff like that, because then it's almost like they're trying to invoke fear for you to not practice magic or not get involved in magic. Okay, that's another side of the coin of fear. It's like, oh, don't do this because then this will happen to you indefinitely. It is not everything is always the same. Okay, I'm not a fan of fear mongering. I'm not a fan of gatekeeping, and I'm not a fan of, oh, it's because of my race that I am only invited into this space. And, it's just a way to discriminate and keep people out. Just notice the signs, know who you're talking to. And I'm going to tell you right now, the biggest telltale sign of a fake or like a fake, that's just the word, okay? Practitioner or witch is when they keep using cliches. Okay, when the cliches just never stop, you're not dealing with somebody authentic. If you're dealing with someone who's always trying to pinpoint the right word, that is not a real practitioner. Practitioners are authentic. They speak the way they speak. They are who they are, and that's your real magic right there. Okay, so don't try to get people saying that, oh, I jumped from Christianity to spirituality, but now I still feel like I got to be obedient to God, and I'm always using the word God, and I'm always using the words Jesus Christ in a way where it's still Christianized. Okay, but you got a lot of these social media supposedly tarot readers and practitioners, and they're still saying things like, well, the Bible says, like, who are we worshiping? Are we worshiping the Bible? Are we worshiping Source? Are we worshiping, or are we honoring? Like, what's the difference? Like, you got to know the difference, right? Spirituality really is not about worshiping outer Source. It's really about honoring inner Source. Okay, because I'm not gonna lie, it irks me to no end when I hear these people, especially on TikTok, when they're talking about, oh, I was not obedient. How the hell do you know? How the hell do you know? Oh, God spoke to me. How do you know that was God? You know what I mean? And people who get on here talking about, I'm a chosen one, telling everybody that they are a chosen one, trying to make you feel a certain type of way, like you might not be a chosen one, so you must be doing something wrong. Okay, please avoid these narcissistic, fear-mongering people who want to make you feel that you're small. Because if you want to be in a position where you feel like you're small, you should have stayed in religion. Okay, spirituality, you have no place in spirituality if you want to keep the mindset of religion. All right, my lovey, that's all I got for now. It's Christina with Karma's Eye Psychic LLC here on Universal Spirit Podcast, and I will see you in the next episode. Thanks for listening, lovies. Bye.